What's up YouTube, Christo here, and I've got another vinyl collection video for you going through alphabetically. Gonna keep going. I did Bell Witch to Black Sabbath in the last installment, and this time I'm gonna start it off with another really big band. So I kind of left off with Black Sabbath, who were hugely important to me, when I was a teenager, and just getting back into them again now. This is another band, definitely really late to the game on them, but once I found out a little bit more about them and, heard some of their tracks, I was like, wow. Blue Cheer, Outside Inside, is that the way it is? I always say it wrong. Yeah, Outside Inside. This is their first record. It is not an original pressing. It's an Italian reissue. That sounds good. I wouldn't say it sounds amazing. But this has the track Just a Little Bit on it. I'm quite sure it's on this album. And I heard it in the soundtrack, well, not the soundtrack per se. Just a little bit. It's in the movie Fubar 2, which Fubar is a goofy Canadian movie. The sequel's not that good, but it had Blue Cheer in it, and I was just like, wow, what is that? I'd never heard them. I didn't know who they were. I didn't recognize the name. I didn't recognize the sound. And I did a little bit of research, and it's like, they're regarded, everyone's going to argue on who really is, but they're considered to be one of, if not the first heavy metal band ever. And it's interesting because people will cite Summertime Blues, their cover of Summertime Blues, as being like the first heavy metal song, but in my opinion, Just a Little Bit is heavier and earlier. It's from 1968, I believe, which is just crazy. Like, it predates Black Sabbath by 2 years. This is actually an original pressing. Vincebus Eruptum. Their second album, I'm pretty sure. And this is the one that has Summertime Blues, I believe. Yeah, Summertime Blues. My record, to be honest, it's not the greatest condition. I got it for a good price. It's not an easy record to find. It is an original Canadian pressing. This is worth a little bit, nothing huge. But unfortunately, my record's scuffed up a bit, but it plays fine. And I've also got this new improved Blue Cheer. I don't really like this one that much, definitely. I believe it's like first album, second album, third album, and definitely a very different sound on this one. It's okay. I don't think I would really play this very much, whereas the other two, I will put them on once in a while. John Spencer, Blues Explosion. This was a big album for me in high school. Orange, by the way. If you don't know Blues Explosion, definitely check out their first couple albums. It's like Extra Width, Acme, is it? And Orange, and they're such good, like, I don't know, just kind of crunchy garage blues. Really good, really good band. Love them. Bell Bottoms is a great track, really great track. Great piece of Canadiana. Now, I do actually have a section of my collection that is for like novelty records, but this made it in the collection because I do like it. I do listen to this. Not a lot, but it's funny. Bob and Doug McKenzie, Great White North. It's basically like, the guys from SCTV. What is it? Dave Thomas and what's his name? Oh, geez. Rick Moranis. And it was this comedy sketch that was on this, like, it was actually an American show, but it was a lot of Canadian actors on it, and they just kind of made fun of, middle-class beer-swilling Canadians. It's funny. It's kind of juvenile. It's a very different sense of humor than, even my generation, and that's like 20 years before me. But it's good. It's fun. I admit I like it. The movie's fun as well. but the sketches, the skits, whatever on SCTV were the best. Danny Brown, Atrocity Exhibition. This is actually a pre-order. I do have the vinyl sleeve that goes on the outside of this, but it's really, really really flimsy, and the seams are splitting on it, and it's I don't know, really bad static on it, I find. Pink pressing, pre-order version. I was really disappointed by this album. Like, I think Danny Brown's a hilarious guy. He's a great musician, but when the album kind of came out, or before it came out, people were giving it like 8, 9, 10 out of 10 kind of thing. And I was like, wow. I loved the When It Rained and Pneumonia. I love the singles that came out. I swear there was a video for Pneumonia, but I can't find it all the time. Really weird. It's a really good track. Both of them are really good songs, really good videos. And the album finally, you know, was released. I got my pre-order, and I was like, okay, the singles are great, but the rest of the album I found, I don't know. James Brown compilation, best of kind of thing. Papa's Got a Brand New Bag. It's just a fun James Brown. I like James Brown. I don't have many of his records. I've got a couple CDs that are like best of as well, but he's just one of those guys that released so much music over such a long time. I'm happy with just doing best ofs. This is live at the Apollo, blue vinyl, little die cut here. I think I put this on once. It's not a great pressing, but I got it really cheap. It's pretty modern. I think it was only like $10 or $15. $1.65. Now, Canadian rap is not something that is very well known outside of Canada, for a good reason. However, $1.65, who is a Canadian rapper, I think is grossly underrated. He flirted with mild success, you know, let's say indie success. He actually had some music that was used in a couple of the early Trailer Park Boys series, like just background music or music that would come on when they turn on the radio kind of thing, which is really cool because he is from that part of the country. He's from out east, Nova Scotia. I can't remember. He's not from Halifax, but he's from Nova Scotia. Anyways, this is Square. And this is an absolutely brilliant art rap, intelligent rap, whatever you want to call it. This is a phenomenal album, concept record, in that there's 2 records, so 2 sides per record, and each side is one part of the square. It's essentially everything flows together. Like if you listen to a digital copy of this, it will literally just flow right through. Like you can barely tell where the seams are, and it's excellent. The music's excellent. The samples are great. The lyrics are great. He's got a very strange voice, very strange flow, but he's great. He didn't really do many really great records, but he's kind of fallen into obscurity lately. Talkin' Honky Blues. Another $1.65 record. This one's actually considerably more rare than Square, but I consider Square to be vastly superior. This is good. I'd probably put this in like kind of like top 3, top 5 $1.65 records, but Square definitely number 1. This is good. A decent album. A lot of country influence here. You know, country rap, doing it, you know, in 2000. When's this from? 2003. So there you go. And this one, another $1.65 Situation, is actually a good record. It's pretty safe for $1.65, and it's pretty easy to find. I think I only paid about $20 for this, like at a record store, one that gouges as well. So it's not hard to find, and it's a good introduction, let's say. But if you can find Square, take it. Built to Spill. I remember the name back in the 90s, but I didn't really pay attention to them. It was, I don't know, the people that were into them when I was in high school. It's a bit different crowd than I hung out with. They were like a little bit more artsy and, you know, gothy kind of thing. And then the American guy I mentioned before that kind of reintroduced me to Black Flag. I actually listened to Built to Spill, this album, Perfect From Now On. He let me borrow it, and I did quite like it. It's not something I can put on a lot. It is quite dark. It is a little spacey. I don't know if I'd say dark, but it's very emotional, let's say. A lot of, I don't know, you can tell there's like reference to relationships and heartbreak and stuff like that, which is no surprise. It reminds me of kind of a crappy time in my life before when I first listened to that. Bukowski. Bukowski reads his poetry. I got this from someone on Discogs. I kind of got it thrown in. Just because shipping to Canada is so expensive, I will kind of, grab a couple things that I've never heard of that sound cool, or that maybe I've heard of the artist but I don't own it or anything, just to kind of, fill up my shipping allowance. And this was one of them. I honestly don't think I've even listened to this yet. It's nothing particularly rare. Some Bukowski records are super, super rare. This is a black pressing. There is at least one colored version. But I've got a lot of his. I'm a huge Bukowski fan. And I've got a lot of his video, live readings on audio file and video file and stuff like that. My friend lent me The Post Office when I first moved to Indonesia. Before then, I was kind of into like Burroughs and more beat stuff like that. And my friend let me borrow The Post Office, and I took it home and started reading it. And I okay, this is like really basic and whatnot. Like, it's a really simple read. It's really short. And by the end, I was just like, this is amazing. I need to read more Charles Bukowski. And I eventually tracked down some more, and just everything changed. Like, he's the only author that writes fiction that I will read essentially anymore. Not quite, but pretty close. And this is a more recent Bookstore Day release, Charles Bukowski, Selections and Candid Conversations from Run with the Hunted Sessions, uncensored. And this is on white vinyl. Pretty bare bones pressing, but nice white vinyl. I am totally a sucker. I admit it. I'm the first to admit it. I'm a sucker for colored vinyl. I don't know why. I just like it aesthetically. I didn't even know colored vinyl existed until like the end of the 90s. My friend gave me a record because he knew I liked the song, and he found like the 7-inch in the cutout bin. He gave it to me, and I was like, oh cool, that's a great track. And I pulled it out, and I was like, wow, it's blue. I didn't know they made colored vinyl. Call Me Burroughs. So just mentioning Burroughs, so until I discovered Bukowski, Burroughs was probably my favorite writer, author. I think I might have put this on, but it is just excerpts from Naked Lunch and Nova Express, both of which I've read, and I believe I've heard some of the Naked Lunch readings elsewhere. But Junkie, again, was my introduction to Burroughs, and it was kind of the same reaction I had as Post Office, because I had heard of him and how hard he was to read and how complex and postmodern he was, and I started reading Junkie, and I was just like, this is really simple, short, easy read, and by the end I was like, wow, this is awesome, I need to read more. And I can't say I love everything that he's done, but Naked Lunch was just definitely, of all the books I've read, which I'm not a huge reader anymore, I admit, Naked Lunch definitely had probably the biggest effect on what I consider literature, fiction now. Totally changed everything. Let Me Hang You. This is a very strange record. William Burroughs reading excerpts, I believe. Yeah, just different excerpts. And it's got musicians playing music in the background, most notably King Khan, who I'm a pretty big fan of. So I bought this, and it's pretty obscure. I haven't really seen it come up very much. and it's on like this really crazy splatter vinyl. I've only listened to it like once. It's not an easy listen. Very strange. I don't know what the heck was going on. They're the buttholes. Okay, so my introduction to them was in the mid '90s when they kind of started to get popular. Before Pepper came out, which was a terrible song. My friends were listening to them, and I liked them. Independent Worm Saloon. I remember listening to that at a party at my friend's sister's apartment, and we were all sitting around, like drinking and smoking, and they put on Independent Worm Saloon, and I knew the name Butthole Surfers, but I hadn't really heard them before, and I loved it. I loved that record, and I was like, this is so weird. I gotta find some more stuff by them, but I wouldn't actually buy a Buttholes record till probably the mid 2000s when I picked up Hairway to Steven, and I didn't love it. Getting into them again now, I've had a really different experience, but I don't have either of those on vinyl or the CDs anymore, at least. So I admit I have to read this off the spine because it's a weird name. Psychic Powerless, Another Man's Sack. So this is like their first full-length record. I only really heard this for the first time like maybe a year ago, and I really like it. It's a really good Buttholes record. Locust Abortion Technician. I think this is probably my favorite though. My favorite full-length Buttholes album. It's really good, really unique. I think it's still when they had a pretty diverse, strange, unique sound. They definitely started to change their sound a little bit. Even by Rembrandt Pussy Horse time, they were starting to sound a little bit different, but this is still a good record. I think after this, I think it was Independent Worm Saloon. I forget the exact order, but it's good. And then after, I don't know. I need to listen to them again. My taste has changed so much. Just even stuff I kind of dismissed a couple years ago I'm getting into. Yeah, I love the Buttholes. These are all recent pressings. Nothing rare, nothing colored. Camper Van Beethoven. A friend of mine had kind of mentioned them to me. He lived in San Francisco, and he was kind of connected to that indie art scene that was going on in the Bay Area, Southern California kind of thing in the 80s, early 90s even perhaps. And I've been a huge fan of Cracker forever, and Dave Lowry, this was, his first major band. And so my friend, I remember talking to him about Cracker, and he's like, oh, so are you into Camper Van Beethoven? I was like, I don't even know what the heck that is. He's like, it's like Dave Lowry's band before Cracker. And I was like, no, I've never heard him. He's like, have you ever seen Bowling for Columbine? And I was like, yeah, I've seen it. He's like, do you remember the song Take the Skinheads Bowling? And I was like, yeah, kind of, now that you mention it. He's like, yeah, that's Camper Van Beethoven. And so I rewatched it to find that track, and I was like, oh, cool, I kind of like that. It's all right. It's a little poppy, but it's all right. And then kind of years later, getting into Camper Van Beethoven, that was a very different era, I'd say. This is very like new country or alt country, I guess is a better word. What is this, volume 2 and 3, I believe it's called? Yeah, for Camper Van Beethoven 2 and 3, original Canadian pressing. Nothing rare, but it's pretty cool. I like that record quite a lot. Our Beloved Revolutionary Sweetheart. This is another early album. I don't remember exactly their discography timeline, but this is a good record, early 88 it looks. Original pressing as well, which is nothing special. I don't think any Camper Van Beethoven records are really worth much. This one is definitely more recent, New Roman Times. There's a few really good tracks on this. I can't... Which one is it? I'm not going to make you sit there while I go through the tracks and find it, but there's a couple really good tracks. There's one on here I really like a lot. But it's good. It's quite modern. I think this is like 2004. I don't know, it says 2004, 2015. So I don't know if it was originally from 2004 and then this was pressed in 15, because there's like some bonus material on it. But yeah, it's definitely much more recent than most of the camper van stuff that I've heard. So there you go, 20 minutes, cutting them down to 20 minutes from about 30. There's another collection installment. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for some more soon. See ya.